Good morning. Thanks for joining us here at Sunrise on the Hill. I'm Hillary Howard.
And I'm Corey Smith. Coming up this morning, D.C.'s home rule faces another threat from the federal government.
And the fight to end a new generation of Democrats to Congress.
Plus, how the government shutdown is affecting federal workers, especially here in the DMV. Speaking of that, the House could vote to reopen the government today. It is day 4 of the partial government shutdown. The House is expected to vote on that Senate package that came last week, funding 5 government agencies.
That would fund the Defense Department, the Treasury Department, Health and Human Services, and several other agencies. But the funding fight over DHS, dunk, 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 that's still ahead.
Joining us this morning is Virginia Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan to talk about everything that's going on in the House. Welcome back to Sunrise on the Hill.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi.
So where does the rubber meet the road here? We know Democrats are calling for reforms to DHS and ICE. Some Republicans say some of these reforms are meaningful but not worth shutting the government down over. How far are Democrats willing to push this?
You know, I think we are very focused on making sure that we have some reforms at DHS. You know, ICE needs to be treated the same way many other law enforcement agencies are. That means the masks need to come off. That means the agents need to identify themselves. That when there are shootings or deaths in ICE custody, there needs to be an independent a thorough investigation, and whoever is responsible needs to be held accountable. You know, these are things that every other law enforcement agency has to abide by. You know, warrants when you make an arrest. I think these are reforms that are popular with the American people, and the American people are demanding action. They see that ICE has gone too far, that the DHS as a whole has been overly aggressive. They're harming people. Over 30 people have died in their custody since the Trump administration began. This needs to stop.
Well, it is a de facto military force.
Yes.
When you look at them and what's happening in Minneapolis. And all of the shackles that are on some members of law enforcement have been removed. That's a whole new ballgame for us.
That's exactly right. I mean, they really do look like a paramilitary force and not that a group that is enforcing immigration laws, many of which are civil infractions. And even before ICE went out on the streets, I saw in my own district, you know, people who were showing up at the courthouse to pay traffic fines, to get marriage licenses, to testify in cases, who were being grabbed and detained and deported. American citizens we know have been detained and deported, but we can't get answers out of ICE on just how many, which is why I filed a bill to do that. We still haven't heard from them. Now they're trying to buy warehouses around the country that were not built to house people that they want to convert into what are basically concentration camps. And even in Virginia, Hanover County, a Republican county, said, we're not interested in this. So I think the American people say enough is enough. We want every agency, including the Department of Homeland Security, to uphold the Constitution and not violate our rights.
Do you know how you're voting on this bill today?
You know, they probably don't need my vote, and we'll see. You know, if they can get enough votes to pass the rule, which it looks like they can. I'm more focused on what happens after the vote today. We've got less than 2 weeks to negotiate something, but we have got to hold DHS and ICE accountable.
So, to that point, so some within the Democratic Party have said not another cent to ICE. We should actually claw back some of the money that went to the agency in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Other Democrats are saying, yeah, we'll fund DHS, which in theory will fund ICE, but we do need some of those reforms. Where do you fall sort of on that spectrum?
We need those reforms. I mean, first of all, DHS got nearly $2 billion in the big ugly law. I don't know that they need much more than that to do their job. We need to make sure that we're funding FEMA and that the president actually uses the money everywhere, regardless of whether it's a Democratic or Republican state. We need to fund the Coast Guard. ICE has plenty of money, but they need to be held accountable, and we need real reform. We need it now.
Is there any kind of fallout if this turns into a longer shutdown because of at least the DHS piece of it, right?
You know, I am hopeful that's not going to happen, because the difference between this shutdown and the last one is that even Republicans realize that there needs to be a change. Many of them have said so. I take them at their word, but we need real reform. We need legislative reform, because this administration has proven they cannot be trusted to do it on their own. They need to be held accountable.
You mentioned that detention facility. We know over in Maryland there's 2 detention facilities being floated, and in one of them, some of the concerns are it may go against zoning laws. Is that an avenue, perhaps, to fight this in Virginia, or do you see other ways to stop this detention facility from coming online?
You know, we're looking at that. I know that our governor is looking at that with a facility out in Augusta. In Hanover, the owner of the building said they're not going to sell. So I think even the owners of these buildings, when they find out, he didn't know what he was just approached by the federal government to purchase the building. When he found out what it was going to be for, he said, I'm not interested in selling. So I think that we need to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that when people are detained, they are detained in humane conditions. And many of these warehouses in industrial areas were not built to house human beings. They were built to house, goods, products, not human beings.
I'd love to switch this just a little bit because the president is once again talking about elections. We just saw what happened in Georgia as it was, people are using the word raided, they'll dispute that, but the officers going in, coming out with all of these documents. And, how concerned are you that the president and some Republicans are going to try to put their finger on the scale of this election?
I'm very concerned. I've been concerned from the beginning. Because they have made clear they are more interested in the outcome of the elections and not whether the elections were held fairly without intimidation. So there are a number of things that we're worried about. We could have the Supreme Court gut the Voting Rights Act as soon as this month. And then I'm really concerned about what we're going to see there. There are concerns about, are you going to see armed ICE agents outside of voting places or other voter intimidation tactics? We have already seen, since 2016, voting officials being intimidated and threatened for doing their job. So I have always been concerned that Trump and his people are more concerned about bullying their way into winning elections, even if that means changing the rules in the middle of the game, like with redistricting, than they are having a free and fair election.
What do you make of the president now wanting to nationalize elections?
Our Constitution made very clear that states take the lead on running elections, that there are rules that apply in federal elections, but that the states run those elections. And he's already trampled many other provisions of the Constitution that he swore to preserve, protect, and defend. I wouldn't want to see him do another one.
How do you answer your Republican colleagues who say, what's wrong with requiring someone to show their ID when they show up to vote? What's wrong with having someone prove their citizenship before they register to vote?
So the SAVE Act, the way that they do it, is a modern-day poll tax. A modern-day poll tax, just like the poll tax that my father and my grandfather had to pay in order to register to vote. And I kept my father's poll tax receipt in the Bible that I took my oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. Every form of ID in that bill that would count costs money. And that is wrong. And we said it was wrong when we passed a constitutional amendment to ban poll taxes. I don't think we should put another poll tax in place to prevent something that is already illegal.
So does this then become an issue for the courts? The courts almost have more power in some regard than we would think they should because so much ends up in their laps to determine.
Unfortunately, Congress isn't doing its job as a check on this administration, so it falls back to the courts and ultimately to the people. And based on the calls into my office, the SAVE Act is not popular at all.
Let's stay in the courts. This Virginia wind project, how confident are you that construction is going to be able to continue, that the courts are going to rule in the Commonwealth's favor, which we should point out has bipartisan support. Both Republicans and Democrats in Virginia want this project to move forward.
I'm pretty confident. And again, once somebody gets all of their permits for a project, they should be able to rely on those projects. And that they got all their permits, construction was almost complete. And I would note that the president's pausing between that and tariffs have already increased the cost of that project. He got elected saying he was going to lower costs, including energy costs. Everything that he has done since coming into office has done just the opposite.
The president has clearly been pushing back against Democratic states. Virginia is now an all-Democratic state. How do you see that manifesting here?
We'll see. We expect there'll probably be some lawsuits. Our Attorney General is ready to defend them. I and my fellow Democratic colleagues are ready to defend the Commonwealth. I hope my Republican colleagues are as well. But here's the important point. This president, who swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, has done everything that he can to trample it. We are not going to let him do that in Virginia.
We've got about 30 seconds left. Data centers. Is something going to get done? We're in an election here. Is something going to get done on data centers? Do you think Congress can act here?
Well, this do nothing Congress has done very little, so I don't know. But I do know that in the General Assembly there are some bills, at least in Virginia, that would. What we need to do is make sure that data centers are located in places that are going to have the least impact on communities and on the environment, and that they are paying their fair share for the energy that they use. They are a necessary fact of life, given data controls everything and everybody uses so many devices. But we need to be smarter about where and how they are put in place. And some parts of Virginia have done that. You know, we have a data center in my district that is 100% clean energy, so it is doable. But we need to be smart about where we put them, how we put them, and make sure we have community input about where they're going to be and that they pay their fair share.
Congresswoman McClellan, so great to have you come in to join us this morning.
You.
Thank you.
Stay warm out there.
Thank you.